After 6 years, 3 games, and countless memorable moments, Bungie's incredible sci-fi trilogy concluded with the mission Halo in Halo 3. The big question is, did they manage to stick the landing? And that's one I intend to answer over the course of this video as we take a closer look at the mission. Let's first begin by reminding ourselves of what happened previously on Halo 3. Returning to Earth following the events of Halo 2, Master Chief unites with Sergeant Johnson and the Arbiter and heads to human base the Crow's Nest. Fleet Admiral Hood and Miranda Keyes detail their plan to stop the Covenant from activating a Forerunner artifact in New Mombasa, but are cut short as the base is attacked. Chief destroys the facility and uses the Savo Highway to travel to the city of Voi, where he takes down anti-air defences, allowing Hood's fleet to launch a counter-attack. Unfortunately, it's not enough to prevent the Prophet of Truth from activating the artifact, which creates a slipspace portal the Covenant's leader promptly uses to escape. The Flood-controlled Indulgence of Conviction then crash lands in the city, and Master Chief fights his way to its wreckage, believing it may be where Cortana is located. Instead, he finds Installation 04's former monitor 343 Guilty Spark and a message from Cortana warning him that the Flood plan to launch an all-out assault on Earth. She also states that the key to stopping them is likely on the other side of the slipspace portal, and so Chief, Keyes, 343 Guilty Spark and friends head straight through it. Arriving on the Ark, a Forerunner facility with the power to activate every Halo and the ability to rebuild them, Guilty Spark leads Master Chief to the installation's map room, where it's revealed 3 shield generators need to be taken down in order to access its control room. After doing so, the flood-infested Covenant capital city High Charity smashes into the Ark, and just as the Prophet of Truth is about to use Johnson to activate the rings, Keyes arrives to stop him but is killed before she can, with the Halo array activated regardless. Master Chief, the Arbiter, and the Flood form a temporary alliance to prevent it from firing. The Arbiter kills Truth and Chief deactivates the rings before the Flood betrays the pair. Narrowly escaping, they then witness a replacement Installation 04 being built and decide to activate it to stop the Flood. Needing an activation index to do so, Master Chief heads deep into High Charity where he rescues Cortana, who still has Installation 04's index to hand. The only thing then left to do is for the group to travel to the newly built installation's control room to activate it, which is where Halo, the trilogy's final level, begins. Master Chief and the Arbiter arrive on the ring in somewhat bumpy fashion.
Halo, it's so new, unfinished. I'm not exactly sure what will happen when we fire it.
We'll head for the portal. That will all go home.
In particular, it's a real pleasure to be reunited with Cortana, although unfortunately it is only for a single, quite brief mission. Halo 3 would definitely be improved by her having a more sustained presence, and it's a real shame our favourite AI isn't given the time to shine she undoubtedly deserves. Speaking of AIs, there's one last terminal hidden not far from Halo's start, and it is the best of the bunch. Playing on easy, normal, or heroic difficulties, it concludes the story of the Forerunners' war against the Flood, a really strong bit of lore in its own right, but it's the messages you can read only when playing on Legendary which are the most interesting. Essentially, it's revealed that Mendicant Bias, the Forerunner AI who went rogue, betraying his creators and allying with the Flood, wants to atone as best he can for his sins by aiding Master Chief. He's a fascinating character and one I'd love to see make a reappearance in future titles. This first chapter is named Full Circle, and as you approach the control room, it's easy to understand why. You crash land on the installation aboard a Pelican and set foot on it for the very first time during a level named Halo, which mirrors the circumstances of Combat Evolved's second mission of the same name, and the structure ahead of you which you need to ascend is extremely reminiscent of the one featured in Assault in the Control Room and later in 2 Betrayals. There are plenty of other references to Halo's maiden outing too. You visit a control room joined by 343 Guilty Spark. It ends with a Warthog run. 1 or 2 instantly recognisable pieces of music are thrown in, and there's some great dialogue towards the level's end, which I'll get to shortly. I'm sure there's plenty of others I've missed too. In terms of the actual combat during these early stages, there's nothing here you won't have seen plenty of times before, which isn't hugely surprising given Halo's context. There are some refinements made here level design wise though, which was the right thing to do. In Combat Evolved, you don't fight the Flood when heading up or down the outside of the building housing the control room, and it might have been pretty frustrating if you did, as the pathways are very narrow, and with the Flood requiring a lot of movement to counter effectively, there would always be the risk you might accidentally fall back down to one of the lower levels. Bungie clearly accounted for that in 3 by widening your route, and also at the top where you have to hold out for a minute or two, the area is laid out in such a way that it's much easier to circle around it than it was previously. Also, a quick side note, these battles and the few short encounters after the control room are the last time we take on the Flood in a mainline Halo title. They do appear in Halo Wars 2 and were a great addition, but I think I'm about ready for them to return in some capacity to whatever the next Halo ends up being. Entering the structure, you're greeted by some unexciting but also very aesthetically well-balanced Forerunner corridors. This is how Combat Evolved's Anniversary Edition should have handled things compared to these absolute monstrosities, and it's not long before friend turns to foe as you're forced to put down 343 Guilty Spark once and for all.
Unacceptable! Absolutely unacceptable! Protocol dictates action! I see now that helping you was wrong!
As much as I adore Bungie's work, they've always struggled to craft a compelling boss fight, and this one doesn't change my mind at all. You shoot Guilty Spark for a while, first with a brute shot and then with a shotgun, before you finally remember a Spartan laser is lying on the ground for the taking, and you shoot him a bit more while he doesn't really do much until he's finished. Or you're a clever clogs who picks up the laser straight away and ends things much sooner. Either way is valid, I guess. Once Guilty Spark is dead, Johnson sadly succumbs to his injuries.
I'm getting you out of here.
No, you're not. No, don't let her go. Don't ever let her go. Send me out with a bang.
After which, Master Chief and Cortana activate the ring, leaving you with just one final objective: to escape. Some very Two Betrayals-esque multi-faction encounters with Flood and Sentinels out on the snow and in nearby buildings follow, and while it is nice to revisit some of the old Combat Evolved style interiors, it's a very quick section and I would have liked a little bit more on-foot combat. In an ideal world, maybe even a larger arena or two with Flood-piloted vehicles would be thrown into the mix. We barely get to see them across the entire trilogy, and I think here would be a great place to include them. It would be a nice little twist that would make Halo feel extra special, and it would also line up well with the story as the Gravemind throws everything he has left at you out of spite. To be fair, Halo does already have its own unique, or nearly unique, selling point in the form of the Warthog run which ends the level. This sequence is phenomenal. Everywhere you look, something is exploding or falling apart. The music is tremendous, and it really does feel like a fitting finale which again fits nicely into the idea of events coming full circle. During the Maw, you escaped Installation 04 at the end of the trilogy's final chapter, and here you do the same again to see out its last. On the topic of the Maw, there are a ton of really sensible changes compared to the Warthog sequence featured in that mission. First, Bungie does a really good job of signposting where you're meant to go using environmental cues, whether that's explosions happening on either side of you to funnel you in a certain direction, coloured markings on the ground to guide you, or really large obvious doorways to draw your attention. Compared to the Maw, there's also generally a lot more room to manoeuvre, and it never feels unfair, like the layout is designed to trip you up, which was a problem previously. That does mean that the Maw is more rewarding to revisit, as it requires a lot of skill to perfect and thus is particularly satisfying to nail in a single attempt. However, Halo's is absolutely more user-friendly, which I think is ultimately what you want. There is nothing epic about getting stuck on tricky corners over and over again and having to slow down to figure out your route. Some may complain that Halo's version feels occasionally unfair due to the floor almost disappearing from under you on multiple occasions, although I've never personally had an issue with that, but enough people have mentioned it that I feel the need to acknowledge it regardless. I also need to acknowledge this little guy because how could I not?
Hey, Demon! The jerk stole
Boarding the Forward Unto Dawn by the skin of their teeth, Chief, Cortana and the Arbiter manage to escape, and I absolutely love this shot of our favourite Spartan and his companion. The epilogue is also handled beautifully. It's not overly long and it doesn't drag things out, but it hits all the emotional beats it needs to perfectly.
I remember how this war started, what your kind did to mine. I can't forgive them. But you have my thanks for standing by him to the end. Hard to believe he's dead.
Were it so easy.
There are also a couple of things I want to highlight from the scenes which follow with Chief and Cortana, who are left floating through space on the half of the Dawn that didn't make it back. Earlier, I referenced dialogue which was similar to some featured in Combat Evolved. Here's what's said there.
We did what we had to do. For Earth. An entire Covenant armada obliterated and the Flood. We had no choice. Halo. It's finished.
No. I think we're just getting started.
And here's what's said in 3.
But you did it. Truth and the Covenant, the Flood. It's finished.
It's finished.
A really nice way to cap things off, I think. And of course, the trilogy also ends with Master Chief going back to sleep after it began with him being woken up, again playing into the idea of events coming full circle. You're also shown him floating towards Requiem if you finish the game on Legendary difficulty. All in all, Halo is an excellent way to round out Bungie's incredible trilogy, one of, if not the best in gaming full stop. It's got some excellent gameplay segments, it wraps up the story in expert fashion, and its Warthog run remains as entertaining today as it was back in 2007. If I had one gripe, it would be that it could have gone on a little bit longer, but it's a minor quibble in the face of how much it gets right. In fact, I think it sums up the phrase, good things come in small packages, very nicely indeed. Thanks for watching the video, boys, girls and Spartans. If you had a Warthog-tastic time, then do consider liking, subscribing and letting me know what you think of the level, and fingers crossed, I'll catch you all again soon.